Why, hello. You've caught me on podcasting day. I figured I'd show off my configuration of the studio when I am doing a podcast with a real live human in the office. So my guest sits here and I sit here, and I have multiple cameras, both piped into the system, and able to have a monitor so I can see guests when they come on the show. So thank you for visiting the studio. I've got work to do. Why, hello. Welcome back. I've finished the conversion of the office, and now I'm going to walk you through and show you my overall studio. So you'll notice these sound panels on the wall. These are actually timber wool that I've taken and spray painted in the colors from my website. If you notice over here, these are my easy canvas prints of the people that I love, my sons, my dog, and my wife. I also have made a handy dandy PAX 8 logo by taking a fat head, putting it on foam, and then putting another thicker foam piece behind it and wrapping it in LEDs. I've got my lighting from back here, my CISSP and my CCSP. I have all, if you zoom back, I have all of these different speaker badges from the different shows I've been to. I've got my networking equipment, which is probably the loudest thing in my room over here. And then I'll bring you in to my desk and I'll walk you through the components, and then we'll get inside the actual setup. I've got my ATEM Mini, my Focusrite 2i2, got my handy dandy Ducky 1 keyboard, my fiddle stuff for my lock picks, and my different USB things that we'll all walk through when we do our next part of the video. So have a seat and join me in my office. Thank you. Okay, so here we sit. You are now inside the machine in my office. I'm actually on another camera. You can see it here. I've just got a little GoPro. So I want to take you through kind of my setup. Let's make sure we're super OPSEC and close out everything on the computer screens and all that fun stuff. And we'll go ahead and maximize. So if you see on my screen there, I am using OBS. I have my A6400 with my 16mm f1.4 Sigma lens, and then I've got my D6 or my A6000 with just a stock pancake lens over there, so you can see kind of just how I'm set up, if that makes sense. So if you look down, we kind of talked about this just a second ago, but main parts of the work for all the HDMI cameras, at least, are happening over this ATEM Mini by Blackmagic Design. So in each of these HDMI ports, I have on each of these buttons, right? And so I can press one of the buttons and it'll change over to that camera. I could do a picture-in-picture with that if I wanted to. I'm probably only using about 20 or so % of what I could actually do with this when I get done at the end of the day. But if we want to move over to audio, I am using this Focusrite 2i2, and then it's being fed, if you look on the back, up to this set of speakers up there, these PreSonus speakers that surround me. Getting back to this unit itself, it's connected with XLRs that go off to a MXL 770, and then over here I have my Rode NT1A that I'm using, and it's held with a Gator Frameworks arm. Deluxe that I can swing over in the event of a podcast like you were seeing in an earlier configuration. I've got this coming into my Dell Thunderbolt based dock, which does matter, and then that ultimately comes over there to my laptop of either choice, whether it's my laptop from work or whether it's my personal laptop, as you see sometimes in my film. This case over here is the Westone in-ear drivers that I am using. These are fantastic. I can hear myself in the microphone and hear the, kind of nuances of whether or not I'm being effective.
I have my Ducky 1 keyboard that can go in all kinds of different colors, and I just leave it on a rotational color. Um, I also have my Stream Deck here that I have coded to do my camera stuff. So when I'm not using the ATEM Mini, I can switch to some of these other USB cameras I kind of have scattered around. But I can also switch over to like my screen share as opposed to necessarily one of these cameras. And so it allows me to bring in this camera into OBS and then do my mixing there. But additionally, I also have my recording button that tells me I'm recording right now in OBS. And I have my lights structured here as well. So I can actually turn off my lights. I can which would actually turn off the cameras right now because they're tied into physical power distribution. So I actually have some Wemo adapters that are physical distribution of power that I can turn off most of my equipment. And so I can set that up on a schedule, or I can trigger it with just a curl command through certain mechanisms I'm using. But I can also change my colors in the room to red, right? Because I have these handy dandy lights above me. I have the light back on the PAX 8, and so I can change that to blue if I wanted to as well. Yep, see, blue. And then I can simply go back to on, and on will just cycle me back to a default setting, and that's kind of how I've set that up. So I also have my music control, my volume control for listening to music and such. And yeah, and then I have a charger. This is one of my other phones, and this is the magnetic charger. It's brought to you by Quad Lock because I use my Quad Lock on my bicycle when I ride my bicycle. And then let's see, what else do we have? We have Groku and my WatchGuard Lion. We have our D6000 over there. Each of these pictures that you see are actually filled with a sound deadening foam as well to try to reduce the echoic nature of this room. I also have some super important stuff here, like my Frankly 2020 MSP Live, some challenge coins and things that I have. And then I also go over to another docking station. So I actually have two docking stations, one Thunderbolt and one USB 3, so that I can distribute the load of all of this equipment. It's gotten significantly better after I moved off of so many USB cams and moved back to these type of cameras, HDMI directly into the ATEM Mini, and then only a single USB out. The ATEM Mini actually can also, interestingly enough, go Ethernet, and you could just broadcast as an RTMP source directly. And we'll kind of get into the software here in a minute when we go deeper inside the computer. But that's it for now. So pause, moving on to the next segment. Okay, here we are. You're inside my computer now. Let's go ahead and go to showing kind of what we need to do. I don't want to make this thing go crazy, so I'm going to go ahead and disable preview. And I'm going to go to screen record. So I won't be able to see myself here, but basically I'm in OBS. And what you'll notice is that in OBS, we've brought in a resource. Right on the left-hand side, you have screen record. And I'll just show you real quick what this would look like. We'll obviously drop into Foreverland there, and I suppose we can kind of work from this. But in the screen record, you have on the left, your scenes. And these scenes are what I'm manipulating when I'm using my Stream Deck to change things around, right? So if I go into the camera, these are just manipulating scenes on OBS through a programmatic control and through the USB. But anyways, so ATEM Mini is one of the scenes, and screen is one of those scenes. If I switch to the ATEM Mini, you're going to see me. If I switch to the screen, you're going to see me down in the corner, and then whatever is on my left screen over there. So essentially, let's minimize this, and let's talk about some of the components. So if you look again, this ATEM Mini is this top one that I click on, and it shows me because it's just ATEM Mini. If we look at what's in that category, and we can do that by, I'm going to trick this by enabling the preview mode, or what is it called? I believe it is called studio mode. Studio mode, down here. So now when I change, you'll still see what I'm recording, but you'll see that it's got an additional component here. Where, showing the kind of the preview, if that makes sense. So if you look in this category, in the sources, all I have is ATEM. and if you actually edit the properties on that ATEM, you'll see that this black magic design is what's being pulled in. You can configure your video. You can set what a resolution and frames per second you're going to get. You can play with whether or not it's flipped vertically or sideways or whatever. You can change audio devices on it, but essentially you're defining this object, and then you're using it wherever you choose to use it, right? So this ATEM is the same as this ATEM here, but what I'm doing is I am selecting the different scenes that will show different cameras and different components. This one's not plugged in right now, neither is that one. And then these are my road cameras. So when I take this laptop on the road, I actually will have a different method that I'm bringing this camera in, and that's via USB and Elgato 4K. But if we go back to our screen record, we'll notice that we have all these different components, right? We have this ATEM, but it works hierarchically, meaning layer-wise, whatever's on the top will come up first. And so here's part of a Facebook thing I was doing. Here's some different little redacted things that I was using to hide some of my addresses. And those are all just components that I'm using inside, and I can move them around, right? I can play with them and leave them in that way, and then I can bring them off and on my screen. And then this is the left monitor being selected, right? So I can turn that off, and then you won't see that left monitor anymore in there in the preview screen. And then when you're using studio mode, you have to actually transition to that for that to be what it cuts over to. But in short, I'm piping in my ATEM Mini as an HDMI source, and it's being captured, and then it's being added in with other layers of components and things we might want. So we can add in game captures, we can add in a browser capture if we wanted, we could do text of some sort, and say something like whatever you wanted to make, and then use that in different places on the side of the screen. So this is how you kind of set up for this production, if you will. So that's really it. You've been brought into my computer. I've kind of shown off some of the things and how they function. Hopefully this has demystified how you might set up something like this. So thank you very much. Appreciate you. I'm going to press my handy stop record button on actually you can see it, on my Stream Deck.